I'm Christy with Eco Chic Blossoms. I started my business because I've always had the dream of owning a floral design company. My mom, dad, and stepdad have owned their own businesses in the past, so I think it's in my blood. And I used to do event planning, and I loved doing that, but every time the flowers would come in for the events, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I always had that dream of owning my own floral design company. I worked with SCORE when I had the vision to start my own floral design company. I had two mentors at SCORE that guided me through the whole process of writing a business plan and starting my business. When I worked with SCORE to write my business plan, my mentors gave me a business plan template and they guided me through writing the whole plan. I would work on it throughout the week, and when I would meet with them, they would go through what I had written and critique everything. Issues that I had during the startup was, I think, what most new business owners struggle with is the big question of what if nobody's interested in my business. Once I got over the hump of that, I started networking and creating relationships with different wedding vendors and started booking business. The one thing that I would do differently is not worry so much about booking every client that I meet with. My thoughts on anybody that's starting their own business is, number one, you're definitely going to be scared and it's a big leap of faith, but as long as you have a business plan and you think about all the different things that go into starting a business, you'll hopefully be successful.
I grew up in a family business. My dad had a heating and air business all his life, and he served the community and fulfilled a customer base. I started working with SCORE a few years ago. Art and Chris met with them monthly for a couple years, and we worked on inventory controls, we worked on overhead issues, and essentially we ended up making more net profit. I received a small business loan through SBA. The SBA is 7A loan, it's an inventory asset loan. Ken Jernigan helped facilitate this loan through the SBA. He's with Self-Help Ventures, and he approached the SBA with all the documents necessary, the business plan necessary, and he's the one that actually got together with the banks and the lenders and put the whole package together for me. The issues and successes I've had, buying an existing hardware store 7 years ago, there are issues with inventory, unknown costs buying an existing business that you don't foresee. And we enjoyed the fact of having the customer base and the location we wanted, but the overhead associated to it, the overhead costs are tremendous in buying an existing store. By buying an existing company, you also buy a lot of where's it at. The inventory that says it's there is not there, and you have a hidden startup cost that you don't think about with buying an existing business. And I would recommend anyone starting their own business to look at, instead of purchasing an existing business, I've since then started another business where it was a ground up, and the ground up business is a much easier model to go with, and don't be scared of the what ifs. If you've got a good business plan, a new startup is absolutely the way to go. I experienced huge growth in a new store, doubled my growth every year for 3 years. Things I'd do differently today if I ran my own business, but I would not start a business with a lease. I would consider starting it with buying the property and the building, building the building, or buying an existing building. Leases have a lot of unforeseen costs built into them. They're higher rates. It's a lot more capital invested to buy your property. It's easy to get into a lease, but it's a smart investment, and you're not wasting years of lease payment that you'll never get back. My thoughts on anyone starting a business today: you need to keep in mind the customer is the most important part of your business. Without that customer, you can't afford to pay your employees. The customer pays for the employees. The customer is what you come to work for every day. The relationships you make with the customer are far outweigh the profits that you make in the business. The most important part to me is the customer and the relationship you make with that customer.
My My name is Kristen Spatrino, and I own Coastal Cupcakes in downtown Wilmington. And I also own Topsy Tulip, which is a frosting company that you can find in grocery stores in about 9 states in the Southeast. I started my business almost 8 years ago, and I did it because I didn't want to be working for anybody else. I was about to turn 30. I knew if I didn't do it at that point, I never would. Didn't have kids, wasn't married yet, so kind of do or die. And cupcakes were just starting to become a thing in some of the larger cities, and it seemed doable, something you could do small, not a lot of people and not a lot of money. And here we are, 8 years later. I've actually worked with SCORE on both of my companies. With Coastal Cupcakes, I worked with them right before we opened a second location. They helped us develop the financials and kind of grow from a single location to 2, which was a huge help. And then with Topsy Tulip, I've worked with them really from day one of developing the idea and learning the grocery industry. It's something I had never worked in before, and they had people that had worked in corporate grocery, which was a huge, huge help. SCORE helped me in developing my business plan for Topsy Tulip. I had never worked in the grocery industry, so I didn't really know all the inside and out of doing that and what all I needed to include, so they really helped me a lot on that. With Coastal Cupcakes, I had already worked retail in the past, so I knew how to kind of form that business plan and what the different areas would be. So I had had that one previously, but they did help tremendously with Topsy Tulip's business plan. Startup's an interesting time, and there's lots of issues and successes sprinkled in here and there, but with Coastal, they happen a little bit quicker, being retail, and we were already up and running. With Topsy, it's been a long startup process, and they've helped a lot in avoiding some issues with some of the vendors and the big distributors of things that I just simply didn't understand. Some of the lingo, in fact, and they were really helpful in avoiding some of those things. I would do a million things differently if I could go back and start it over right now, but hindsight's 20/20, and I just try to learn from them, truly, because I can promise you that when you make that mistake, you won't make it again. But it's just constantly changing, and the biggest thing is it's not a one and done situation. So even though I made those mistakes, I can now go back and make sure I don't do them again. It's constantly changing vendors and learning things. I mean, if I could start over right now, I'd probably have an extra $150,000 in my pocket just from some of those mistakes of things having done that I didn't need to do, or should have used a different vendor, should have done a different way. But there's no way to know until you've done it. Oh gosh, starting a business today, it's not necessarily what you think it will be. It is, for one, you're constantly on the clock. There is no getting off of work. There's no going home and turning off the phone, because you're constantly on call. You're constantly having to think of how to be better, because that's the only way to win at it. I do caution anyone who wants to turn their hobby into a business. The reason it's a hobby is because it's fun and relaxing, and when you turn it into a business, it's not necessarily relaxing and fun anymore. So really having to enjoy the core of the business and just business in itself. It's not necessarily about the product per se. I sell cupcakes and I sell frosting, but to me it's the game of business, which is so much fun.
I'm David Michael. My business is Michael Matters Incorporated. I'm a software consultant for the legal vertical. Lawyers and legal agencies do something called matter management. That means they organize all their files based upon individual matters. The software does contact record management, case record management, document assembly, document management, billing, accounting, all that kind of infrastructure stuff that they need in order to do a good job. I started my business because I enjoyed working in the legal community, and I also enjoyed technology. So I wanted to travel and feed my curiosity. Consulting was a good fit for that. I met with SCORE several times right at the beginning of my business. They helped me with my business plan, with my service contract. They helped me define my rates. They helped me think about my supplier and my relationship with the software suppliers. And they gave me lots of good advice. I did work with SCORE to help develop a business plan. But to be honest, my business was just me and a laptop and some advertising. So it wasn't really very elaborate. One of the biggest issues I had when I started up was that I only had one software company that I was working for. SCORE pointed out that they held all the cards, and I really didn't have a lot of flexibility. So they encouraged me to get some other certifications so I had other products to offer to my customers. That was a great idea. Another great success story from my work with SCORE is that they encouraged me to share business opportunities with other consultants. As a result, I now have a lot of people who work for me and work with me and sometimes even give work to me. as a result of that advice. If I were to begin my business again today, what would I do differently? Well, I would certainly have a lot more courage. I've been in the business now 12 years, and I know the model works. If I knew that when I began, I think I would have tried to do a franchise model or much larger organization where I would have had lots of consultants working for me. My advice to other people starting business would, of course, to be to contact SCORE, to sit down with SCORE counselors and ask a lot of questions. And don't be afraid to ask bad questions. You can learn a lot. And then once the business is going, to continually learn, to continually read and explore more aspects of your business. And to not just work on the service delivery side of your business, but to actually work on the business side. Build the community of your business, build its reputation, build its internal processes. That's what I would do.